Hi, welcome to this first episode of The Rookie Entrepreneur. Firstly, I'm sorry about the background noise. I'm in the truck just now, which is where I'm living at the moment, and it's pretty stormy outside, so hopefully I can denoise it when I come to edit the video. So, The Rookie Entrepreneur, what's it about? Basically, I want to share my entrepreneurial journey um, with those who might be interested in having a go at doing something entrepreneurial themselves, whether that be as a career or just learning to take steps of courage or faith or risks, depending on the way that you view the world. You might use different labels. And I guess a good place to start is to share my journey as an entrepreneur so far. Um, I've put rookie entrepreneur because that is what I regard myself as. Obviously, I have had lots of small companies, but in comparison to big experienced entrepreneurs like Richard Branson or Elon Musk or many others, I'm very much just a rookie. So, but hopefully, seeing that just another normal person can have an idea about something and turn that idea into business and be able to live from their company or companies, might encourage other people who are thinking about it as well and are maybe a bit scared to do so. So I'm not sure how often I'm gonna post an episode of this because I don't imagine there'll be much update in the short term with regards to where I am, but there will be in the future. So once I start another company, wherever I end up. So in I'll try and do like a short summary of my entrepreneurial journey, um, and just flipping really fast through my career first. First job I think I had was probably a toffee round, um, and I think I ate most of the profits. And then after that, I think I did work in a supermarket when I was maybe 15, 16 for £2 something per hour. After that, I also swept up at a bank as well, swept up the car park. Um, and apart from that, um, left school to go to college and dropped out. And then also, I so when I left that, I went to work in a pie factory, which wasn't the most fun considering that I'm a vegetarian. And yeah, it was kind of dark in the morning when you went to work in winter and dark when you came out, so it was pretty depressing, to be honest. But um, I left or dropped out of college on the Friday and started work on the Monday, so um, I guess that was a good resolve to get a job. I remember my parents telling me that I wasn't going to be a layabout, so I was obviously keen to prove to them that I wasn't. So after that, I thought maybe I could give college another go, and again dropped out. So, and after that was a removal man, and did that for I guess maybe 6 months, a year, something like that. And from that, I got my first suit job. Not really, as a result of that, but when I turned 18, got my first suit job, which was basically just working in a BT call center in Dundee, and that was when Bradford and Bingley were demutualising into a bank. So I was on a helpline, and you basically had scripted answers. You couldn't say anything freely. You had to listen to the question that a customer asked, and then you had to put in the right code into the computer, and that would bring up the answer that you were allowed to give them. And if they asked you something that you didn't have an answer for in the computer, you had to apologize and say that, I'm really sorry, but I'm reading from a script and I can't deviate from it. And you can imagine that, when they asked a few questions that you couldn't answer, they got a little bit miffed. So, but that was my first suit job, and it was good to be maybe using my brain a little bit more than, doing something that wasn't just manual labor kind of thing. And also starting to develop skills in customer services. That was meant to be a job for, I think, 12 weeks. But then I was asked if I wanted to move to their other call centre when the contract ended to work on their sales campaign. I'd never done sales before, and I didn't know how I would get on with it, but obviously I wasn't going to say no to a job. So basically I said yes to that, did the training, and it turned out that I had a forte for sales, which I had no idea about before. And within a short period of time, I was selling more than anyone else in the call centre, and it was insurance for Sky Systems. I think it was called Skycare. Yeah, it was called Skycare. So did that, and then ended up coming off the phones. They ended up using some of my calls for training as well, which was quite complimentary. And I just kind of felt, wow, I must have kind of found my niche, because I found something that I'm really quite good at. And obviously it was being recognised by other people, so I was just really excited about it. And yeah, so that was really cool. And then basically I was asked to come off the phones and manage teams. So I had one team originally, and we went from being the lowest performers to the highest performers, which was great. And that was probably the first time I'd ever had any experience in management, and I didn't have any training in it. But what I basically did was just looked at people's individual statistics for their calls, and obviously would try and give them advice and mentor them, listen to their calls to kind of help them do what I'd find to be successful. And then I would show them their improvement every week. So I'd go home at night and produce statistics for each member of my team, just to try and encourage them. So that worked out really well. And then it was actually my parents who suggested that you're really into cars, and you're obviously good at sales, so why don't you try and get into the motor trade? And I remember thinking at the time that a job like that, a car sales exec, was far too good for me, and that's not something that I would ever get. But I decided to give it a go anyway. I was only 18 as well, so I was a lot younger than people were generally when they started in car sales at that time. So I put in an application, had an interview, which went well, and then hadn't heard anything maybe after a week or something. I can't remember if I had a second interview or not. I've still got the letter asking me to go for an interview, and I've still got the letter offering me the job. And I've still got my first decent sized pay slip from that as well. And basically they said that we'd really like to give you the job, but we have a problem with insurance because you're a lot younger than car sales execs usually are, or trainee car sales execs usually are. So I was kind of like, oh, I really hope they can sort it out, because I was so close to getting a job that I was really enthused about, and thought that wow, this is me stepping into another league. This is not something that something that I thought was too good for me, kind of thing. And what they ended up doing was basically insuring me daily through the rental insurance. So that was really good, and I suppose it was a reflection of their initial confidence in me being worth the risk, worth the investment. And I guess that was very humbling and very encouraging. But obviously I would have been concerned as well about, am I just going to totally sink, and then they're going to be like, yeah, we shouldn't have given you the job, and then I would have proved myself right that I wasn't good enough for a job like that, kind of thing. So, but I went for it anyway. At the beginning, the sales manager and I didn't really get on that well, and after about 3 months I was ready to quit. So I actually went and spoke to he's now a good friend of mine, so I don't know if he knows this bit, but I actually went and spoke to the dealer principal when he was off on holiday, and basically said, look, do you believe in me? Do you believe in everything that I said in my interview? And, do you believe that I can do what I said I would do? And he kind of paused for a minute, and then he said, yeah. And, and I sort of said, well, have you got my back, kind of thing, because I just really want to go for it, but I kind of feel as though this relationship with the sales manager isn't really helping me, and it's not really helping my confidence. And I think to be honest, it was just a misunderstanding really between each of us. I think it was probably just maybe our own insecurities, and I was probably quite insecure, but tried to cover it up, so came across as quite arrogant, and was probably, if somebody asked have you done that before, do you know how to do that, I was probably scared to say that I didn't, so I'd just say yeah, and when I said yeah, I was thinking like, yeah, I can figure it out. But then obviously you then do it wrong, and they're kind of like, oh, we could have just told you. So I learned a lot from being a trainee car sales exec and just moving into a kind of a suit job. And I think it was within about 6 months I was the top seller in the car garage. So, and that was kind of, for me at that time, that was pretty life-changing stuff. I mean, I don't really remember what I was earning in the call center, but I would hazard a guess that I was probably earning at least 50% more, if not more than that. And when I was 19, I got my first company car. So that was really cool as well. And then basically trying to fast forward through it from there, we moved garages, and then the manager kind of changed, and a lot of things changed in the garage. There's a lot of new staff came in and things like that, and I basically felt as though it was just so much hassle trying to get a car up to the standard that you wanted it for your customer, and obviously you were responsible for organizing that, but then you're kind of relying on other departments that you don't really have any control over. So yeah, I decided to make the move, and I started running an independent garage. It was a trader who'd bought trade-ins from the main dealer, and ended up going to run a new, just a small showroom with lots of different types of cars. So we had new cars from likes of, well, EEC cars. So we used to get them from the south of Ireland, brand new unregistered cars, and then we could sell them for less than the main dealer, because cars, even though it's like the same car, cars are exported at a different price to different countries. So you can actually go and buy a car cheaper, brand new in some countries, export it back to, or import it to the UK, and then it's actually cheaper than getting it from a dealer. Whether that's still the case, I don't know. That was a long time ago. But one of the cool things about running the wee garage were that I did get to drive some pretty cool cars. We had, I remember at one point we had a 911 Turbo in the showroom, and so obviously I got to drive that, and also got to drive a Ferrari 355 that somebody was thinking about trading in for it. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I worked mega hours in the little garage, and I was making way less money than I was just selling cars in a main dealer. So then we moved to Perth. I've moved 15 times, by the way, but we'll not go into all of that. I moved to Perth, and then I started working for Ford, and I think it was really good just to be in a main dealer again, and to have a decent company car, because in the small garage, he just gave me some kind of crapper that to drive around in, which was obviously a bit of a come down from getting a brand new car every 3 months. But but yeah, I mean, I learned from it, and it was, I had responsibility for a few $100,000 worth of cars when I was 21. So it was a good learning curve, and I learned about marketing, placing adverts, stock control, just the kind of things that sales managers do. So obviously that was kind of learning more over and above what you learn as a car sales exec. But I do have to say that I think that anyone that's been trained as a car sales exec is a really good foundation for business. There's so many transferable skills that you could use to, start your own company. I would say though, if you're gonna go into trying to do that for yourself, just because you're really good at selling doesn't necessarily mean you're really good at buying. There's a whole other set of skills that you need to learn, and discipline that you need to learn if you're gonna actually be going out looking for the stock yourself. And I didn't have to do that in the small garage. Obviously the owner of the garage was a trader, so he just basically gave me cars, and sometimes I had a choice about what I got. And obviously we generated stock through taking part exchanges as well. So that was that. Then I left and went to uni, and after Ford in Perth, I left and went to uni, and then basically while I was at uni, that was when I started my first company. I fell into DJing while I was at uni, and to be honest, it was a welcome break from all things theological. I was doing a theology degree, I was doing placements, I was living in a manse with my dad as a minister, so it was really awesome just to be in a pub playing tunes and getting paid quite well for it. So yeah, originally I think it was just like a kind of good student job, and just a break from church stuff and theology, to be honest. And that kind of spiraled from there. I remember that the agent that I used to do gigs through lost quite a lot of venues, and he didn't have as many nights for me anymore. So I remember getting offered my own night, and I accepted that. It wasn't through a venue that he previously supplied. Well, it was, but it was a different company. The venue had previously shut down. So this was however many months later, I don't know, maybe 6 months later. So new business, somebody else took over the building, and they offered me a night. So initially didn't have an issue with it, and then decided that he did. So that meant losing the rest of my gigs that I did through him and basically going on my own. And that was 2008, I think. And that was when I first became self-employed as DJ7 Entertainment or something like that. And basically that kind of built up. So doing DJing in bars, clubs, doing karaoke nights, quiz nights, things like that. And it built up, and I ended up setting up a limited company. And this was all while I was still at uni. And then basically I ended up getting into business with a friend, and he had more venues. Did he have more venues? I don't remember. He was doing more nights than I was anyway, but so he had his own venue, I think, and I think maybe he had a couple of venues, and I had a couple of venues or something like that. And we decided to get it together, and I think that was a steep learning curve for both of us, because we're both used to being in control. And what we learned the hard way after it is that even if you're in a partnership, somebody always has to have, even if you're in an equal partnership, somebody still kind of needs to be in charge. And I guess that's why you have the principle that, whoever owns 51% of a limited company has a controlling share. So, but we did really well together, to be fair. We had, I think, as much as 20 venues at one point, just supplying, DJs for bars, clubs, and and karaoke nights, quiz nights and things like that. Actually, I've told a lie. I didn't have the limited company before that. That was the first limited company, so I was self-employed. Then we got together, formed the first limited company. That was Cheeky 7 Limited. And then after that, we started doing some other bits and pieces as well. We were both working a lot of hours, making a decent income, but nothing spectacular. And then we decided to part ways and just have our own companies again. So we both set up our own limited companies, and just a few months before that, I'd actually started my tooth whitening company, 7 White Limited. And the reason I did that is because I saw that it was kind of an emerging market, and I had my own teeth whitened, paid for my girlfriend at the time to get her teeth whitened, and just obviously with your sales brain, your entrepreneurial brain on all the time, I think I got to watch her treatment getting done, and I thought, it only took about an hour. There wasn't that many consumables. The consumables can't be that expensive, so there's probably quite a good margin in that. And there was, but I think I probably got into it probably a bit late, and when lots of people were starting to get into it, and people were starting to doing substandard treatments for much less money, but obviously people are always just attracted by a cheap price. So although they weren't getting anything like the same, they weren't necessarily getting in-surgery laser treatment as well as home whitening kit. The consumables for the treatments I was doing, including supplying a home kit, were almost as much as these people were charging for their tooth whitenings. So that just kind of tells you that it was nowhere near the same thing. So yeah, I didn't really make a lot of money at the tooth whitening company, to be totally honest, but I did make some money out of it. And then it was never illegal when I did it, but it then became illegal. So obviously I sold up, and I had a room in a beautician's, and I ended up just selling the equipment to her. And apart from that, I went around lots of different beauticians, tanning salons, sometimes did home visits, and I also had a room in my house at the time for doing tooth whitening. So that was a tooth whitening company. Around about the same sort of time, I've always still been playing away with cars a little bit, so I was probably doing a little bit of stuff with cars. I also had I set up a website to sell quizzes to people, because obviously I realized that I was spending a lot of time making quizzes. So if I could sell them nationally online, then I'd be making a lot more money. And I did make some money out of that, but it never really kind of took off the way that I kind of hoped it would. I think probably the mistake I made was trying to market the whole of the UK in one go. I was using Google AdWords at the time, and probably what would have been better is if I targeted a specific area first, tried to get build up a client base there, and then then start kind of marketing more widely. So that was another learning curve. And so around about that time, 2012, that was when I became the first guy to have hair surgery carried out in the UK, in Scotland even. And that basically, I then kind of had the opportunity to represent some surgeons. I had different surgeons who did surgeries with me, and one or two of them asked if I would be interested in representing them, kind of thing. So basically just advertising, finding clients, talking them through the process, and then being paid commission for it. So that was something else I was doing as well. But I think I probably had about 4 things on the go at one point, and after that I learned that that's a little bit too much. And actually the guy who owned the tooth whitening clinic, I remember him saying that, because he's sort of a further on entrepreneur than me. Well, he's just retired maybe a couple of years ago for the second time, and I remember him saying that he doesn't ever have more than two things on the go. And I think that's probably kind of wise, because you can end up, it's not just about what you can cope with in terms of time and in terms of what your mind can cope with. It's also about how well you can do everything. And I think that although you may be able to run multiple companies at once, and when I say run them, I mean also technically be an employee of them and be working for them, I don't think that it's the best strategy. I think that you could probably make more money either by having a more directorial role and overseeing things, or just by focusing more on one or two companies. So I would never take on that many things again, but I did cope with it and I was absolutely fine. So after that, am I forgetting anything? Any companies? So after that, I went into probationary placement in ministry training, and so I wound down my entertainments company. I'd already wound down my tooth whitening company, and still did occasional consultations for hair surgery. And then basically I was still doing some gigs, but I wasn't doing a lot. I was being paid not a huge salary, to be honest. I think it was maybe 20 grand or something, to finish training for ministry for like 15 months. So I did do some gigs, but not loads. And to be honest, I think that after being out for 4 to 7 nights a week, between 4 and 7 nights a week for about 7 years, doing gigs, and sometimes doing 2 gigs in a night. I'd finish playing in a bar and then quickly go and then set up and play in a club. It was getting a bit old, being out every night or nearly every night. And it's not really the best thing for your health either, to be up till stupid o'clock in the morning and then sleeping till late. And obviously I was then getting up and then doing tooth whitening during the day as well, and dealing with whatever else I was dealing with. So yeah, I probably sickened myself of it a little bit back then, but thankfully, after having had a break for a good few years, I really enjoy it again. But I only do gigs if I want to be honest, because the money that venues generally can afford to pay for gigs hasn't really increased, I don't think, since the 90s, or much since the 90s. But the cost of fuel is, I don't know, 3 times as much, somewhere between 2 or 3 times as much, and just the cost of everything in general. So it doesn't really add up as something to do to earn money. I think it's more, do a gig because you want to do it. For me anyway, do a gig because I want to do it, and make a night out of it as well. So yeah, I think you really have to enjoy it to still be doing it these days, unless you're a big name and you're making mega bucks every night. So that was the so I stopped DJing. I stopped everything when I went into my first church, and for 6 months I was just a full-time minister. I didn't have any companies. I was just doing one thing for the first time in a very long time, because when I was at uni, I was doing a full-time degree, and I was out multiple nights per week, DJing, doing quizzes, doing whatever, organising other DJs, with my business partner, sorting out equipment, basically running a company, as well as working full-time, as well as also doing placements, as well as also going to training conferences, so I was doing a pretty hefty amount of stuff, and definitely working 7 days a week for quite a long time, which I don't think is a good idea. I wouldn't recommend that. I think it's important to have a balanced life, and that's something I've maybe learned the hard way, but I did learn it quite a long time ago. So I would always aim to have 2 days off a week, and then you should at least get one. And I think that if you're working 7 days a week, for any longer than, a kind of short period of time where it might be necessary for some reason, I think that, it's probably good to make a change if you can. But, that said, I know as I say this, we're living in a financial cost of living crisis. So yeah, if you're in that situation like I was, where you had to work 7 days a week, I hope you can get out of it soon, because it's all about balance, I think. So no company for 6 months. Then through the process of getting an AV system for my first church, or for looking for one, I realized that they're really expensive to get somebody to come in and install an AV system. Mega expensive. So I took the initiative to go to a supplier of a good good AV systems, and chanced my arm and asked if we could just buy one directly from them. And they said, you need to be a limited company. So I sort of said, well, I've had limited companies in the past, but I don't have one just now. But if I go and incorporate a company, will you sell me one? And they said, yeah. And I was like, fair enough. So I went and incorporated a company, which cost me about 100 quid or something. And then we got an AV system from them. And I did plan on just shutting down the company after that. Genuinely, that was my plan, was just to use the company to get an AV system for my church for a lot less than I would have been able to buy one for as a kind of private individual, or as a charity or whatever. But then I kind of thought, well, there's lots of other churches in the same boat, and it's just the entrepreneur in me, I suppose. I saw a problem and I wanted to fix it. People think that entrepreneurs are really money focused, and they're money hungry and things like that, and that's not actually the case. You're genuine and successful entrepreneurs. Being an entrepreneur is about seeing something wrong that you want to fix, and whether that means bringing a new product to market. You see that there's a problem, and you can invent something to make life easier. Like, I don't know, anything. I mean, there was a movie about it a good few years ago, but the storyline in the movie is like this super rich guy, who's one of the main characters in it. He made his money because he invented those little collars that you put on your takeaway coffee cups to stop your hand burning. But just a stupid example, but you can see a problem that you can fix by inventing something, or you can see that in a particular area you don't think people are getting really good service, so you can create a company to give better service, or you feel as though you see an area where people are really paying a premium, and that was the situation for me. I saw churches getting hit with astronomical quotes for sound systems, and unfortunately some of them paying astronomical sums for sound systems, which are generally way over specified, and I'm talking up to 50 grand here. And so I decided in my spare time I would start installing AV systems for churches. I'm not going to go too much into that, because I've done a couple of videos on my AV company, my church AV company, why I started it, why I stopped it. I've already done a couple of videos on that on my other channel. So basically, I did that, and we're probably saving churches about 40 to 50% on what they were quoted, and that was for as good or better system. And I did the installations with basically subcontractors, people I knew who I could subcontract at the weekend to help me. And we installed, we did over 100 installations all over Scotland. And so So yeah, that was just, using my experience from, running an entertainment company, because occasionally we'd have to get involved in helping venues with their sound systems, or doing things like linking TVs together, or yeah, and you had all your own equipment as well. I had to help DJs when they were stuck with gigs, couldn't get the screens to come on, or they had problems with the laptop, or the problems with the sound system. You had to kind of have a pretty good working knowledge of audiovisual systems. So it was basically just a case of using that experience to help churches. And in the beginning, I wasn't actually charging anything for my time, and I was doing it on a Saturday on my day off. So after just saying that it's really important to aim to have 2 days off, or at least one, guilty as charged. I gave up that to run that. So and from that, we also, I looked for other areas that we could help churches as well, and realized another thing they were getting charged a lot of money for was LED lighting systems. So and that was something I organized for my own church as well. I got LED lights manufactured to order in China and shipped over for my church, which saved us, again, many thousands of pounds. Probably we probably saved 20 grand between the sound system and the lights, just by using some initiative, getting the bits at wholesale, and then just doing it ourselves. With the guidance of an electrician, I should say, for the lights as well. So we also did pat testing. That was just another thing that churches kept on asking, do you do pat testing? And so we started doing that as well. And I think that was it. Audio, video, lights. We did kind of sort of float the idea of a marketing company for churches, but to be honest, it didn't really have the time to put into it to really push it and market it, so we never really did anything with that. When I say we, I mean myself and a friend who's a graphic designer, and she was really busy as well. So that was those companies, and I kept that company on after. So when I left my first church, that actually ended up being my living. It was never intended to be that, but again, I'm not going to go into the great detail because that's all in the other videos. I also had a car company for a year. So in the village where I was minister last, I was planning on going into property, which is that's a story for another video, which I will do. But basically, I just kind of felt like I had to get it out of my system, because I kind of flipped cars here and there over the years. I've always kind of kept my hand in it. I'd get cars for friends or family. I would sell their old car for them. I would get them a really good, trade price on a new car, and things like that. So, but I'd never actually tried, having like my own wee car lot or anything. And I went into it kind of thinking that it probably wasn't the best way of making money. I started it with like, I think £3,000 or something, which is nowhere near enough money to do something properly. But I did manage to build up a reasonable stock of cars. It was all kind of, generally it was stuff that, you sort of 2 or 3 grand stuff. Had some more expensive stuff at some points, like a Range Rover and things like that, which I wouldn't recommend buying. But no offense if you've got a Range Rover, I think they're lovely. It was a Range Rover Sport. I think they're was it an 11 plate, lovely car to drive. I think they look really nice, but very expensive if something goes wrong, because quite a lot of jobs you actually have to lift the body of the car up off the chassis to get to things, and that's not cheap. And just suspension faults, things like that, and electrical gremlins. But I'm sure a lot of people know all about that. I often see on my newsfeed somebody who owns a a company that supplies parts for Evos, and obviously I've had a few Evo 6s. He's always posting about that's another fault code on the Range Rover, and that's quite a new one he's got. So yeah, and basically didn't really make any money out of that either. The problem I have is that I want to, even if it's like an old car and it's, yeah, I mean, other people would maybe just wash it and punt it as they've got it. No, I'm at that time I didn't know how to paint or anything like that, and I wasn't doing mechanical work myself. So, I'm paying to get any bits of dodgy paintwork fixed. Doing things mechanically that you wouldn't have to do, but I would do them anyway. And so yeah, I mean, people got some really well over-prepared cars for a really good price, and I enjoyed running it for the year, so that was fine. And then I stopped that because I was planning to go into property. So I'm gonna wrap it up there, I think, because that's like 40 minutes. But that's probably not too bad to summarize my whole career and companies. In case you haven't seen any of my other videos, I closed the two companies that I had, the AV company and the car company, before the pandemic, and unfortunately just over 6 months before it, which meant that I wasn't entitled to any government support, and then wasn't able to do anything with the property company, and that's another whole story which I'm going to do a video on. I know there's quite a number of people who are egging me on to do a video, and I will, but I just can't do that right now. So yeah, no companies, quit my job on the 31st of October, which meant I lost my home as well, because that's part of the parcel if you're a minister. So living in my truck, and fortunately I have somewhere to work on some old Golfs that I bought, which I'm doing up. Then I'm going to do the works to the ex-military Defender, the Defender truck that I'm in. Gonna paint it, do some upgrades for going on the road, and then I'm going on a big road trip. So that should be fun. I was gonna say something else. Yeah, and I'm gonna be like really open in this about where I am financially, because you can call it faith, you can call it belief, you can call it arrogance, call it whatever you want, but with everything that I've learned and the experience I have and the work ethic that I have, I know that I will be back in a much better situation than I'm in right now, and so I don't really mind sharing that I'm in not a brilliant situation right now, because as I start starting a business again, wherever I am in the world, possibly doing flipping cars in different countries and things like that until I get to my final destination, wherever that is, I'm gonna start a company, and I'm gonna make it work. I need to make it work and get back up to where I was. So where I am just now, yeah, I mean, I have some assets, but and my assets outweigh my liabilities, but the upside of having had a pretty good income is that you have a pretty good line of credit. So that's pretty much fully utilized just now, and that's paid for the Golfs that I'm working on. So I need to obviously add value to them to get somewhere out of it. So yeah, I mean, people that have watched my other videos and are like, well, things are that bad, how did you manage to buy 4 Golfs? Well, I mean, they're like £2,000 or £3,000 each to buy one, and with the help of the bank is the answer, and not my savings account. So there we go. not in a brilliant position just now, and it's time to work myself out of it. Thanks for watching.